All right. Hey, everybody. In this episode of our third person design scenarios series, I'm going to kind of start a mini series talking about the Bolt visual scripting tool that has recently been um, acquired by Unity and is now free for everybody. So, this coincides with our discussion in class of the state patterns. So, if you haven't checked out the Game Programming Patterns book here, it's really awesome and it's free online. But we want to talk today about the state pattern and how it relates to Bolt. So, if you've ever tried to program like a complicated player character, eventually you're going to run into some of these situations where you have tons of nested if statements, and maybe you try to create enumerations to help define states and kind of make sense of some of this nesting that you might encounter as you build what is sort of like a state machine within your script. But eventually, you want, like, as this article or this chapter in the book will show you, eventually you might want to create a more object oriented approach to the state pattern, where each of these states is its own class or object, and they have their own like virtual methods that get called at specific times, like on state enter and on state exit. And this is what Bolt essentially gives us for free. So the best part of it is that if you look, when the author here is trying to illustrate the state pattern, it's easiest to show with this flow graph sort of image. And at the end of the day, trying to program all of this as a script file is a little obtuse or unwieldy and awkward to follow all the time. But what's great about Bolt is it will give us a way to visualize our states and the transitions and how and when they happen and how they relate to one another. So that's the best part. I mean, I know a lot of people, when they think about visual scripting, are going to be just excited, like, ooh, I don't have to code. But really, that's, you'll see Bolt is pretty much just exposing all of the same functions and API that you would have to deal with in C Sharp, just in this visual way, which doesn't always make it simpler in my mind. But when you're dealing with states, it's way better. So that's what we're going to use Bolt for. So to be honest with you, I'm pretty new to Bolt. It's kind of a new feature, at least in terms of being free and included in Unity. So we're going to have a pretty simple application here just to test it out and kind of get familiar with it. So I'm going to go to the package manager here, and normally you might be looking at like Unity registry here, and you could search and find all sorts of Unity packages like ProBuilder, etc. But in this case, Bolt is still on the asset store essentially. But I'm going to show you there is a way nowadays to find assets that you have bought on the asset store in the package manager by using this drop down and changing it to my assets. And in theory, searching for a Bolt would work. There we go. It seems to be kind of laggy or something, or not the most responsive search. But Bolt is on here. If you can't find it this way, you could always go through the asset store. But we're going to do it this way through the package manager just because that seems to be the wave of the future here in terms of Unity. And if you haven't yet, you'll need to download it. And once you've got it downloaded, you can hit import, and it will bring up the familiar import package window here. And you'll just hit import and let it do its thing. And there is a little bit of setup required to installing Bolt. So unlike your typical package, you need to, when you're done importing it, you need to go to this tools window here, or tools menu rather, at the top menu bar, and choose install Bolt. and this will just do some more importing essentially. So we'll hit import again and let it do its thing. All right, so once Bolt has finished importing through this install menu, you'll get presented with this dialog that says welcome to Bolt, and you hit next, and it asks you to pick a naming scheme. I'm going to recommend you choose programmer naming if you are familiar with programming, just because it's not going to kind of obscure what's actually happening, and you'll understand all of these things do directly correlate to members and Unity API that you're dealing with. And so if you're used to that, it will be more transparent this way. And then for the assembly options here, I'm just going to use the defaults. This might be something we need to adjust one day. Same thing with types. I'm just going to use the defaults. And maybe eventually we need to add to this. There's a way to add like custom types that might be important for your project. But at this point, we'll just roll with the defaults and add to it as we need. All right, and so now setup is complete. You got some handy links to the documentation if you want to take a look at that at some point. But I think this is a good moment to stop this video, and then the next video we will get started with our actual example.